This is Bart, and he's agreed to answer the 3 dream questions. Are you ready, Bart?
I believe so.
Okay. First question is, what are your hopes and dreams?
Well, like Carol said, we're kind of living a lot of our dreams. I'd always dreamed of living in a cabin out in the woods. Well, now I live in a house out in the woods. So, as a kid, I always talked about wanting to go to the woods because I grew up in the suburbs. I don't need to go to the woods. I'm in the woods. So that's kind of been a dream of mine anyway.
And that's something you foresee happening, continuing, is what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, growing up in the suburbs, I can't imagine living in the suburbs again or living in a city again. I love living in the woods. This is just where I belong, I guess. So I'd always dreamed of having a garden, growing a lot of my own food, and now I'm doing that. I'd actually kind of always dreamed about homesteading, and
wow.
yeah. And it was interesting when we were in high school, or I should say, I say we because Carol and I are together, but when I was in high school, a whole bunch of us talked about homesteading. We talked about wanting to go to Alaska and homestead. I got to understand this is the early 70s when you could still do that. Yeah. And none of us did, really. But what we're doing here is probably as close to that as we can get without actually going to Alaska and doing that. So that's been a big part of our dream, a big part of my dream. Self-sufficiency, I guess, is part of that whole thing. You know, I've always been a very independent person, and so that whole homesteading mentality, I guess, of self-sufficiency was always something that appealed to me.
Where do you think that came from? I mean, you were in a city.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny?
You probably weren't exposed to it.
No, I wasn't.
Just from maybe an adventure television show or something?
I always used to say I was born, 100, 200 years too late, I guess. I don't know. Like a lot of folks of my or our age, we grew up reading about Daniel Boone and Natty Bumppo, Fess Parker on TV was at Disney, the Disney show, and
Sunday nights.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But I had to take a bath first.
Yeah.
And so I would watch that and I'd say, "Wow, man, I want to do that." But how do you do that living in the suburbs? So we would seek out little patches of woods, vacant lots, whatever. There was a little brook or creek that ran nearby, and it had a little strip of woods by it. And so we'd go in there and we'd run around and play cowboys and Indians and play Daniel Boone and be explorers and that kind of stuff. And so how I got to that from being raised in the suburbs, and both my parents lived were raised in the city, is sort of mysterious to me, I guess. I don't know.
American frontiersman.
Yeah.
Skipped a generation or two or something.
Now I had a great uncle on my mom's side who during the Depression bought a farm, or actually before the Depression, bought a farm. And he hunted and fished and lived on a farm, and of course the Depression didn't work out very well for him, unfortunately. But and so my family or my mom's side of the family always said I always took after Uncle Walter.
So your Uncle Walter, did you know him?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, he was. I don't know. I was probably junior high, maybe, And he took us out fishing on his boat in Long Island Sound. And I had a ball. I was like, geez, this is what I want to do, you know. So where he got that, I don't know, because that whole side of the family all grew up in New York City.
Wow.
My dad and his family all grew up in Cleveland. So somewhere there's that frontiersman gene somewhere, you know.
So. Yeah, so I think you're almost answering my second question, which is, do you remember some of your earliest dreams, things that you wanted to be, maybe when you were 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever?
Well, like a lot of boys that age, you know, we always, you know, you want to be a fireman, you know, and we saw the astronauts land on the moon, so of course then we all wanted to be astronauts, and I remember one time we went to the circus, and so I wanted to, you know, join the circus and, you know, play on the trapeze and, you know, all that kind of, you know, like most kids, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was really the whole frontier, being a frontiersman, being an explorer, you know, going out hunting and fishing and trapping and, you know, living out in the woods, living in the mountains, you know, that kind of thing. That was something that always appealed to me, even as a kid, you know, reading books about it and like I said, seeing a show on the tube there, just really sparked that interest, you know, and that's carried with me, you know, even to this day. I mean, I want to live out here. Yeah. You know, people say, "Geez, aren't you afraid of you know, living out in the woods there like that? You know, aren't you afraid of, you know, bears or animals?" No, this is home to me. You know, this is where I want to be.
I'm going to take some pictures out here. Too, and maybe of you guys in your garden. And stuff to use those pictures, because it's beautiful up here.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of the winter a little bit. Imagine that has a
winter's
different side to
winter's different up here than it is in town.
I can imagine.
So.
You were talking about sustainability and self-sufficiency and stuff like that. Do you see any broader applications for that than just than your own lifestyle? Do you see that other people could join into that kind of a thing, or is it more of a we'll take care of the world that we're in the way we are, and if other people want to, they can. If you know.
Well,
do you have any concerns outside of?
Yeah, you know, not everybody can live like this.
No.
You know, and that's fine. And I wouldn't want everybody, you know, to live like this. And but I think as a country, well, as a world, really, we do need to become more sustainable in what we do. And some of the things that we're doing just aren't sustainable. The mass consumption of things, it just isn't sustainable. At least in this country, isn't sustainable. You know, maybe for a little while, but that's you know, in the long run, it's just not sustainable. So
you know, to run a linear system on a finite place.
Oh yeah. So. You know, can everybody grow a garden? Well, maybe not like this, but you know, you could have a little planter in your house, in your apartment.
Vertical gardens. And
you know, I've seen or read where folks in some of the cities are gardening on top of buildings. That's perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes us a little more sustainable.
Yeah.
But I think it also gets people to think about where's their food coming from?
Yeah.
You know, what does it take to be alive? What does it take to keep you and I alive and going?
And we're totally detached.
We're very detached from that.
Most people don't want to know where their food comes from.
Right. It comes from the store. It comes from Shaw's. It comes from Price Chopper. You know, so and you know, it's kind of interesting. We don't raise animals for a number of reasons, but we do hunt, and and I want to get back into fishing. You know, I did a fair bit of fishing for work, but that's very different. I couldn't keep those, and so knowing where your meat comes from is something that you know, I think is important, and I think it's something that Carol and I really are more in touch with because of that.
It becomes more. It's not only the nutrients from the wild meat; it's the spiritual type of a thing.
Because because in order for one organism to live, another one has to die. You know, so if you want to eat meat, a critter's got to die, and so you need to be responsible for that. And when you go to the store and just buy a platter of meat, you know, on a white styrofoam platter, you're very detached from that, you know. So we butcher all our own critters that we that we get. So people give us Carol Nielsen gives us roosters, young of the year roosters, because nobody wants roosters. No. You know, you only need one. You know, and you get a bunch of them. Nobody wants them. So she gives them to us, and we butcher them ourselves. Wow. And so there's that it's hard to explain, but it's you really get to know what it takes to live and to get that meat, because
you feel the life coming out of
because
that
here's
animal.
This live animal, and now you got to kill it. And it's like, well, this is the way life is, you know, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. No, they really don't understand that, you know. And even if you're gardening, you know, if you want to be a vegetarian, that's great, but you know, when you pull a potato out, you're killing that potato because you're eating the root, you know. So you're killing something. So
going on, Simba.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The cycle of life.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you could go back and talk to the 13-year-old Bart.
So what grade is a 13? I was trying to think about this.
I think that's almost 7th grade. Probably.
7th grade, okay.
From 6th into 7th.
Wow, 7th grade. Oh boy, that was a tough.
Or 12 years old, or the 16-year-old, or a group of, if you were going to talk to a group of young kids.
Yeah. Get outside. Well, I got outside a lot when I was a kid, but I would tell other people, get outside, you know, explore, you know, go out to the park, go out to the, you know, go to a national park, you know, go to a national forest, go out to your local woods and just explore, you know.
There's a thing out there, you probably heard about it. It was about 12 years ago, the nature deficiency disorder. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah, I have. I have heard of that.
He said that there's a lot of problems that we have in our cities that could be solved by taking people to nature.
Yeah. Oh,
and it's good for the brain. It's good for all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it is. I mean, we're, you know, just because we're humans doesn't mean that we aren't part of the natural environment. We are absolutely a part of the natural environment. And people, I think, a lot of people today have detached themselves from that, insulated themselves from the natural environment. You know, with their houses, their heating, their cooling, their, you know, whatever, so that they just aren't connected with that natural environment. But the reality is we are, whether they want to think so or not, whether they you know, actively are a part of it or actively detaching themselves from it. You're still part of that, you know.
I ask my students almost every year, I say, how many of your grandparents are retired?
Yeah.
And I have them stand up, and I say, how many of you who are standing up, your grandparents are doing what they want to do? And most of them are still standing up. And I say, how many of them are going fishing or camping or gardening?
Yeah.
And almost all of them are still standing up. And I say, isn't it interesting? We spend our whole life working to be able to do what our ancestors did to survive.
Right. Yeah. No, that is interesting. It is. So
there might be something like you were saying. It's inside of us that wants to connect.
Yeah.
We just kind of shut that off. Maybe.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know. Like I said, you know, is it for everyone to go out and live in the woods? No, it isn't. You know, but I think people still need to have some sort of connection, whether they go on vacation or just go for a walk. You know, something simple. Walk their dog. You know.
There's a guy that I interviewed at the Colorado Divide. He's walking the Colorado Divide Trail. I mean the Continental Divide Trail.
Oh yeah.
In Colorado, 2,700 miles or something like that.
Nice.
They walk every year, and he was a former Iraqi. He was in Iraq.
Oh, Iraq War vet. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You ought to watch that one. I'm actually gonna link yours to his.
Oh yeah.
Because he talks about being out in nature.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's important, and that's why I pursued the career that I did. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, my folks grew up in big cities. You know, my mom grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My dad grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. You know, and then
this is important for you to say that, because there are going to be people watching this hopefully at some point. Have had the same childhood that you had.
Oh yeah, and it's you know, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but they grew up in big cities, and they didn't have.
You were talking about your vocation.
They didn't have a vocation that was in the outdoors, and so for me, growing up in the suburbs. And just where, you know, the what I was interested in and my connection with the outdoors, I wanted to have a career in the outdoors. You know, as a kid, I didn't know what that would be. You know, but it was interesting because a teacher, and I think this is kind of interesting. I think being an ex-teacher, you know, you might appreciate this. I had a teacher in high school. His name is Ron Yerian. I'm not sure if he's still alive or not now, but I'm hoping he is. But I haven't talked to him in probably 30 years now. But he was one of the people in my life that really was instrumental in getting me to where I could get have a career in the outdoors. He was the one that sort of guided me into that direction. And, you know,
I'll probably put this part in for sure.
You know, I mean, and I think every teacher would love to have one student say, this teacher had a huge impact on my life. You made a difference in my life. Doing what I do, being where I am now, and that person was he was a science teacher. He taught chemistry. He taught biology. I think he taught biology. Anyway, but he taught a course called environmental science, and it was for seniors. And I took that class, and boy, that was a defining moment. So,
is there anything that you can think of that you, as you've been talking, maybe a last word of advice or an observation that kind of crystallized as you were talking about this that may not have anything to do with any of the questions?
About
anything.
About anything.
And wow. You don't have to have that. You know.
Well, one thing I was going to say about if I could give somebody advice that was a young person, a young Bart, I was one of those people. Classic case of I was someone that did not apply myself in school. It wasn't that I was stupid. I was acting stupid, but I wasn't stupid. I just wasn't motivated. I wasn't inspired. And so I didn't do well in school. You know, I got D's. You know, I passed, but I basically did what I had to do to get through. to graduate.
Yeah.
Because I knew dropping out was
enough.
You
did enough.
Yeah. I would say don't do that. Apply yourself a little more, because there's a lot more opportunities will open up for you. This teacher, Ron Yarian, did inspire me. And so it's interesting. You look at my grades, through high school, and there were, C's and D's, and and all of a sudden I got an A. So what's the difference? What happened? Well, I was inspired. Yeah. This guy inspired me, and so I did well. And it was interesting. We a couple of us went and saw him years later, and we were just talking about this and that. And he goes, "You know what? You guys," there was a bunch of us that all kind of hung out together. He said, "You guys were a real special group of folks, because you guys took what we were doing and not only wanted to do it well, but you just took it to this whole nother level, And I said, "Well, Ron, you really inspired us, to want to do these things." And so it was a good visit. I'd love to look him up if he's still around, if he's still with us. I'd love to look him up. Yeah. So we stayed friends for a number of years.
I'm sitting here thinking what I'm going to say if I have to turn the camera on me and say, go back and thank a teacher somewhere.
Yeah, no, really.
That's really gratifying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I would definitely tell kids, apply yourself. Yeah. I didn't. And I did finally, figure it out.
Yeah.
But it took me, I spent 5 years between high school and college just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And
you still had plenty of time to do it.
And I still had plenty of time.
Yeah.
And I finally went to college, and I did well in college because I applied myself.
Yeah. It made sense to you.
It made sense. Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you very much. Bless you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.